Yes, this is Topisphere. And yes, we are talking about Gharials today. So let's begin. It doesn't look real. A jaw too long, too thin, like nature was sketching something prehistoric and never stopped. You won't find it in most stories. No towering myths, no monstrous legends, just scattered whispers, stories half remembered, carried by river currents and fading tongues. And yet, it moves like a relic, ancient, quiet, and oddly out of place. This is the Gharial, a creature forgotten by folklore, but remembered by time. A survivor from another age, gliding through the present like it doesn't belong. They say every ancient creature carries a story. In most parts of the world, crocodilians glitter through legends, beasts of wrath and divine judgment, monsters guarding treasure, gods with jaws wide enough to swallow the sun. They lurk in old epics, stare back from temple walls, their shape distorted into demons or deified into symbols of power. But the Gharial? Its myth drifts quietly beneath the surface. No great tales of conquest, no thunderous roles in scripture. But it moves through human history like a whisper, always present but never quite seen. In Indian folklore, there are soft echoes. Some say the Gharial was once a guardian of the river goddess Ganga, a silent sentinel patrolling the sacred waters of the north, ensuring the flow of purity and life. Others speak of it as a creature of balance, too peculiar to be a threat, but too serene to be feared. In some traditions, its presence near bathing areas was a sign of good luck, the waters watched and therefore safe. Even in those tales, however, the Gharial drifts like a shadow, present but barely remembered. The crocodile stole the stage. The snake coiled into myth. The tiger, the lion, and the elephant roared through legend. But the Gharial remained at the edge, seen but seldom spoken of. Perhaps because it never fit the mold of a monster. It wasn't brutal like the crocodile. It didn't inspire fear like the alligator. It was too thin, too strange, too quiet. But sometimes, the stories we overlook are the ones that have been watching us the longest. The Gharial isn't just old, it's ancient, a living relic of a lineage that stretches back over 80 million years ago, and it stands as one of the last traces of a time when reptiles ruled the rivers. It belongs to the order Crocodilia, but it doesn't quite fit in with its better-known cousins. Unlike crocodiles or alligators, the Gharial is part of its own distinct family, Gavialidae. Its narrow snout, filled with over 100 needle-like teeth, is built almost exclusively for slicing through water and snapping up fish. Fossils tell a much broader story than the rivers it calls home today. Prehistoric relatives of the Gharial once swam in waters across Africa, Southeast Asia, and even South America. Some species reach enormous sizes, like the extinct Rhamphosuchus, a massive gavialoid estimated to be 30 feet long, found in what is now India. But time, as with all things, wore down its kingdom. Climate shifts, habitat loss, and changing rivers drove its kind into decline. Today, only 2 members of the Gavialidae family remain: the false Gharial of Southeast Asia and the true Gharial, our focus, which now survives only in a few rivers in India and Nepal. Unlike its crocodilian cousins, the gharial is almost entirely aquatic. It cannot walk on land with the same lumbering ease. Its legs are weak and splayed, better suited for swimming. On land, it shuffles awkwardly, but in the water, it glides like a ribbon, sleek, swift, and silent. It is, in many ways, a ghost of its deep past, and every time it surfaces for air, it's like watching a whisper from another world come up for a breath. Today, when we say gharial, we're usually referring to the Gavialis gangeticus, the last true gharial still swimming in the wild. Its only living relative, the false gharial, or Tomistoma, shares a similar slender snout but belongs to a different branch of the evolutionary tree and lives far to the east in the swampy forests of Malaysia and Indonesia. But the true gharial is tied to one place, the Indian subcontinent. Historically, its range was vast, from the rivers of Pakistan to the Bay of Bengal. It was once a ruler of flowing waters, gliding through the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Mahanandi, its presence a quiet constant beneath the surface. Now, its territory has shrunk to a shadow of its former reach. Most of its remaining wild population is found in a few sanctuaries in India and Nepal, especially along the Chambal, Gandak, and Gharial rivers. These are rivers that still offer deep, fast-flowing waters with sandy banks, the gharial's preferred domain. Unlike crocodiles, gharials don't lurk near the shallows waiting to lunge at prey. They rarely leave the water at all, in fact, except to bask in the sun or lay their eggs in riverbank sand. Their bodies are built for current and clarity, long, sleek, and specialized. But these waters are not what they once were. Dams, pollution, and illegal sand mining have worn away at their home. What was once an unbroken highway of river is now fragmented. And so, the gharial survives not in power, but in pockets. Protected, yes, but still endangered. The gharial's jaw is unmistakable. Long, narrow, and studded with over 100 needle-like teeth. It isn't built for brute force. You won't see it wrestling prey or dragging carcasses into the depths. This snout is a tool of precision, and its target, fish. There's no ambush in its hunt, no dramatic leap from the shadows. It drifts, patient and quiet, letting the currents carry it like driftwood. When the moment is right, it flicks, fast and surgical, catching fish mid-swim with a snap of the impossibly thin snout. Its jaws aren't made for tearing flesh. They're made for slipping through water without resistance, a tool perfected over millions of years. Those slender jaws are perfect for reducing drag, a specialization few predators can claim. It doesn't need to chew or tear. It just catches, swallows, and moves on. Unlike its heavier cousins, the gharial doesn't rule with brute strength. It doesn't wrestle rivals or roar for territory. In fact, it seems to prefer avoiding confrontation altogether. Even during mating season, a time of chaos for most reptiles, the gharial remains oddly restrained. Males posture and hiss, sometimes clash jaws, but full-blown battles are rare. Displays, not destruction. Echoes of something more ceremonial than violent. They gather in groups, sometimes dozens at a time, lining the sandbanks in the early sun. There's a strange peace to it, not a social bond like mammals might form, but a quiet understanding, a shared silence, a congregation of scales. And then, the hatchlings. This is where the gharial does something unexpected. When the female lays her eggs, she doesn't just vanish. She stays. she waits. She listens for the first muffled chirps from beneath the sand, the ancient sound of new life, and when they come, she helps them rise, nudging them gently from the nest. It's one of the few reptiles that will tend to its young, protect them, and even carry them in that long, toothy jaw, not as prey, but as precious cargo. And she lowers them into the water like offerings. Even the males, known for their bulbous snout knobs and territorial tendencies, have been seen cradling hatchlings on their backs, a living raft floating through the reeds. The hatchlings, barely the length of a hand, are vulnerable to birds, to fish, to the very river that gave them life. But for those early days, they are watched, sheltered, and surrounded by instincts older than any kingdom. It's not parental love as we know it, but it's something. A memory, perhaps, of a time when giants walked with gentleness. And once the hatchlings slip free into the current, that quiet legacy continues. Young gharials will start with smaller meals, insects, frogs, crustaceans, before graduating to a nearly exclusive fish diet. And while crocodiles and alligators may fight over territory or kill out of aggression, the gharial stays out of trouble. Its peaceful, fish-based menu keeps it away from conflict. Yet, even this quiet hunter carries a signature mark. One curious feature that often draws attention: the bulbous knob, called a gara, that appears in the snouts of adult males. It isn't used for hunting at all, but for sound. During mating season, the gara amplifies deep, resonant buzzes through the water, a low-frequency call to any nearby females. It's not for fighting, not for feeding, just for finding a mate. For a predator, the gharial is oddly elegant. No death rolls, rarely a scuffle, just fish, silence, and a quiet life beneath the current. In a world where predators often roar and clash, the gharial does neither. It slips between centuries like the river it calls home, quiet, ancient, and strangely overlooked. It doesn't demand reverence, it doesn't ask to be feared. But perhaps that's the point. Not all legacies are loud. Some simply endure, long-snouted and still, like a whisper from the fossil record. And as the river carves their way through time, the gharial remains, not vanished, not forgotten, but rare and real. A living echo of a world that once was and still is. Thank you for watching.